Henry Kroll. Okay, thank you, Mr. Rowe. Captain Henry Kroll is an adventurer, aviator, miner, commercial fisherman, inventor, entrepreneur, and outstanding writer. And Henry has authored several books available on Amazon.com, one of which is Cosmological Ice Ages. His websites are www.guarddogbooks.com and www.alaskapublishing.com. And it says...
I live somewhere near Kasilof, Alaska. I've been living here about 4 or 5 years, and we're kind of a shack, and we heat with firewood. We've got solar cells. We're not hooked to the grid, so if power goes down, it doesn't affect us whatsoever. And we got our own well. And I haven't found the town of Kasilof yet. I've lived here 5 years, and, you know, they have a post office, and that's it.
Wow.
So anyway, we're 9 miles from Soldotna, south of there on the main highway. And I'd like to talk about anti-aging. I wrote a book about 25 years ago called Philosopher's Stone, and I could get into that later. But first, I'd like to talk about our little vacation that Mary and I took. We drove down through Canada. I've never actually driven down there. I've lived in Alaska more than 70 years. And I've been over the highway when I was about 8 or 9 years old with my folks. You know, we came up using I forget what it was. It was one of those old Chevys or something. Anyway, we got up here, and we decided to drive out this last winter in November, or October actually. We left the end of October, and we stayed out for a month and drove all the way down to Reno. There was no problem getting into Canada. This side of the border, there's no restrictions whatsoever. And then the Canadians asked me if I had a firearm with me. No. You got more than $10,000 with you? No. Do you have any drugs? No. You know, then they just sort of let you go on into Canada. And I was driving an F-250 pickup truck, 4-wheel drive, because I didn't want to drive off the road or anything. Amazing thing about Canada, it's really neat and clean there, and they have a lot of camping areas every so often, and they also have places you can pull off the road with garbage cans, and they don't look like anything in America. They're kind of at a 45-degree angle, and they're brown. The signs and everything's in kilometers, of course, so you have to do a little conversion from miles per hour to kilometers. But we got through herds of caribou. There was one crossing the road we had to wait for just before we got into Canada. And then we had some more caribou, and we got to see some brown bears that were next to the road there, a couple of them. One was posing for the tourists in car pulled over, and he was kind of just lounging there. And then later on, before we got to Whitehorse, there was herds of buffalo, a lot of buffalo, actually. I think some of the herds were 40 or 50 buffalo and little calves and stuff romping around. We had to wait for them to get across the road. We couldn't just drive on, you know, they were blocking the highway. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it was a lot of fun and really picturesque drive, and I really enjoyed it. And we went out to visit my mother-in-law and then my wife's sisters, and her brother had just fallen off a bicycle and cracked open his bicycle helmet, punctured a lung, and
that's terrible.
2 other things. Yeah, no kidding, and did something with one of his kidneys, and I mean, it was horrible. It just like he must have been going 50 miles an hour.
I was going to say, where was he biking? Good grief.
Yeah, well, you should stick to driving. It might be safer, is what I suggest.
Yeah, you know. Truly.
Anyway, we traveled on to Reno, Nevada, and we took the high road to California through the woodland areas, and I was looking for an airport where maybe I could, you know, spend some time, rent a hangar down there and construct airplanes. And I wanted to put electric motors in airplanes. I think that's a coming thing. Mm-hmm. And I did find Elon Musk's battery plant. It's between Fernley and Reno, Nevada, and Silver Springs. There's a big triangle of land there. Apparently, he owned the land there. It's a vast area. You can't get near his new battery plant. It's huge. They have guardhouses with people with guns, and they don't let you in near that place. You can't even see it from the guardhouses. It's so far away, you know. Mm-hmm. And Panasonic went in business, I think, in partnership with it to build solar cells in the same plant. The whole roof's covered with solar cells. I've got that info off the Google Earth and also YouTube. You can
Nice.
see it on YouTube. He wants to build hundreds of those plants all over the world. That's his plan, and have solar cells on every house and these batteries that fit on the wall of your house, so that you're not connected to the grid anywhere. And power lines are outdated, and you don't have to pay the power companies. And once you invest in this equipment, that's it. You know, that you're good for. And foreign countries or third world countries can have electric power like anybody else. You see, and I think it's a great idea. I also watched the first stage of his rocket come back to Earth and land using its own power exactly on the spot where it took off. Now that is amazing.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Yeah.
And, you know, nobody's done that. I mean, nobody can do that. I don't even know how his engineers did it. I mean, that blew my mind completely.
Brilliant, yeah.
You know, having enough fuel left over to land the first stage of the rocket reduces the cost of space, putting satellites up or bringing up material to the space station. It reduces the cost about 40%. He's hoping to reduce it more with some more reusable equipment. And they build it all in his shop. I mean, all of the stuff's built on wherever there's launching, and have electric motors and solar cells that charge them up. You know, you could put 1,200 watts, 4 kilowatts on a trailer, 20-foot long trailer. You could just line it with solar cells and have the battery built into the trailer, or at least the inverter part of it. You could park that trailer near your house and plug in, you know, or you could plug your airplane into it. It's portable for Alaska use. It just doesn't work out. But anyway, I spent a week in Fernley and swam in their pool there and researched. I was going to go to Carson City Hot Springs, but it was too crowded. I couldn't get a room there. And there's few hotels in the area. They need more.
Sounds like it.
But anyway, we came back to California, and our whole idea was to take the state ferry to Juneau. And I have a daughter, Sarah. She's 33 years old, beautiful lady. Don Molino is his name, and he has a rescue vessel. It's about 28 feet long, I guess, powered by two 300 horsepower Yamaha outboard motors, and with stainless steel props, 4-blade, so we could tow other vessels off the rocks. And he and Sarah and Joe, they also run a ferry boat to a bay, to a mine. They haul 60 passengers to Auk Bay from Juneau. Well, on the way down there, Bellingham, it's a 3-day trip down to two 4,050 horsepower Enterprise diesels, and they only turn 200 RPM, and they run at a constant speed all the time. They vary the speed of the ship with variable pitch propellers, and they hit 4 logs with those things, and it vibrated like crazy. They had to flatten the pitch out and kick the log out of there on the way down to Ketchikan. It scared me. You know, I'm used to running boats all my life, and I've been on a lot of bigger boats and run boats up to 130 foot. Kids and grandkids, and had a lot of fun. And he wanted me to go on a rescue mission at 10 o'clock at night. I wasn't feeling good. I was tired. And some state troopers had taken off, 4 of them, I guess, and they went around the island on the outside of Juneau, Douglas Island, and they were hunting deer out there, probably illegally. And they'd anchor their 25-foot skiff or 22-footer out there, and it drug anchor, so they were marooned on the island, and it was raining, and it was storming, started to blow 50 miles an hour, you know. So Joe wanted me to go out there and rescue these state troopers, and I felt really ill, and so I didn't want to go. The Coast Guard already sent a 40-something foot, 42-foot the skiff disappeared, and they never did find that as far as I know. And Joe says all they had to do was, shut their engines off and where the skiff was anchored and drift for an hour and see which direction your boat goes, and then follow that direction. You're bound to find it,
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't have enough brains to do that, apparently. But anyway.
Wow, what an adventure.
So we got on another ferry, and we went up to Haines. steep hills and mountains and to Haines Junction in Canada. Well, there was no problem getting up through there. I had to drive 30 miles an hour through the snow for a while there. It's like blizzard conditions. So we got up Haines Junction, had lunch, and then continued on. And we made it all the way to, what is it called? I can't think of that place right now. It's near the border anyway. It's Porcupine or something like that. And there was one hotel open. So we went in there, and then I went out to get in the truck, and I did a stupid thing, and I locked the doors of the truck. So when I got out there, it was 10 below zero, and all the locks are frozen because it's been raining for days.
Mm-hmm.
So, we couldn't get in the truck. It was like 10 below zero Fahrenheit out there.
Oh,
freezing. So I managed to pour some hot coffee, and I had a canopy on the back of the pickup, fiberglass canopy, and I had a lock that I jury-rigged on there, padlock. So I poured hot coffee on that. And then my wife is small, so she crawled inside the bed of the truck and tried to get those sliding windows open to get into the cab of the truck and couldn't do it. They were froze. So I rigged up a suspension cord, which was in the back of the truck, and there was a portable heater in the hotel room, fortunately, a little one. Plugged that in, and about an hour or so later, we got those doors open where she could climb through the window into the cab and unlock the door from the inside. And she was able to get the passenger door open, but the driver's side wouldn't open. It was froze pretty bad,
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, I got the truck started again, kept it warm, and the next morning plugged it in for an hour, and it started. It's a diesel truck, big diesel.
So it didn't gel up?
To get it running.
Did the diesel gel up on you or no?
Oh no, they got additives for the fuel. It wasn't that cold. I guess anything that gets around 20, 30 below, it will gel unless it's got the right additives in it. They add more gasoline or volatiles to the fuel, so it will, But anyway, we drove the next day all the way to Glen Allen. It's 1,000 miles from Haines, about to where we live here near Casilos. On the highway. So it's still drag logs up in there and build a house and all that. And they got 3 boys and 2 girls, and or 4 boys, I guess it is, and 2 girls. And there's one scene where the girls are on the ground and they're plucking what they called spinach off the ground, natural spinach. It looked like plantain to me, which is edible.
Mm-hmm.
The little round leaves, and they say, "Oh, we just love it out here. We can just eat land, off the land everywhere." It's just so fake. It's funny, that isn't how it works, in reality.
Mm-hmm.
But people eat that to make money with that, and actually, one of the guys is nicknamed Bam Bam. The young guys, they all take their shirts off, so the young ladies watching down there in the States, they Twitter one another about this particular show, so they get more viewers that way. But anyway, 2 of them got arrested for filing false information on their state dividend checks, and old Joe Brown there, whatever, he had to go to jail for 30 days can't ever get another dividend in Alaska because they made false information on their application. So that just came out in the news here a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
But it is worth watching, and it is funny. I enjoyed it. I stayed there waiting for the ferry, and I got to watch it on cable, all the episodes. And then there's also one on gold mining on the Discovery Channel of the Beach family. He moved a big old giant gold dredge over there, and then the little guy is 20 years old. He grossed $3 million mining gold, a Schnabel kid. His name is Schnabel. And there's another group of guys that were mining there. They had a giant 5-part sluice box and huge equipment, and they're just moving many thousands of yards. Family operation, but it's more real. Mm-hmm. We run in a small cove with my boat, and we have to put out 3 channel markers to get up in there. It's really shallow water, and you have to be able to, practice doing this, which I've done for 50, 60, 70 years almost, and then lean it uphill. And to get ashore, swing the boom over and just grab a rope and swing over like pirates onto the beach, basically, if there's nobody there to pick us up. We haul a lot of freight in there and ice and fuel and everything for a fishing operation. I also haul a barge over to Point Harriet from Kenai. It's a 45-foot barge, about 16-foot beam. And the Bailey brothers, and they have their wives and their couple kids and a deckhand and a couple dogs, or 3 dogs and a cat, and bunch of overhead, see.
Yeah.
Old Howard Hughes ran his company with 1 secretary. Then they had Noah Dietrich running his tool company down in Texas, and that's all he had. And he had a $1 billion company.
Mm-hmm.
And, these guys had 40 people on their roster when I went up to see them there in Seattle. And Nickerson Street, 400 Nickerson Street, we drove over there just to check, see who's going to be buying our fish next summer. And I don't think we can fish for them. It's too scary.
I'm telling you. So what's the radiation? We've discussed it before insofar as, are the fish being contaminated, or are they healthy?
That they don't let that out. This might ruin the economy or something like that. They want people to keep eating it.
Right, and die.
But
yeah.
I know for one thing that king salmon, those big kings that go in the Kenai River, they stay out in the ocean up to 8 years. They stay out longer than every other species of fish. So if there's any radiation out there, they're going to have the highest radiation content. You have a little bit of radiation. Then you got the zooplankton, the little things that eat the plant plankton, the phytoplankton. Then you got the little minnows and the herring and all the needlefish that eat the zooplankton. And the king salmon come along and feed on the herring and the needlefish. So, it concentrates at about 3 or 4 times, at least four times. Right. And the king salmon migrate over to the Kenai River, and the tourists come up here and they fight over those big kings and they eat them. And so maybe they can find them with a Geiger counter when they pass away. I don't know.
I was going to say they should be regulating that in some form. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the outcome is. They don't tell us. And my Geiger counter isn't working right now. I've got one of those old civil defense ones. I can't make it work.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Well,
we'll see, I guess.
Everybody starts glowing, right?
Yeah, I found out more. They want to just kind of alleviate the pain or whatever, but not cure anything anymore.
Exactly.
Allopathic medicine, they call it. So we drink our own well water here, and I think it has a high orm content. Those are the orbitally rearranged monatomic elements. Now, I talked to my doctor about it. He doesn't believe me. He's kind of an older guy, like my age. And anyway, I wrote a book on this 25 years ago. It's called The Philosopher's Stone. It's about cell division. Basically, it's increasing the cell division rate so that you don't age. And you can be healthier, and to do that requires a lot of energy. And you have to feed your cells the right material, the right foods in order for them to survive. But we have these alien cells in each of our human cells. Fortunately, they're passed down by the mother through the egg. They're called mitochondria, and their job is to metabolize the food for our human cells. And they have their own DNA, and they've tested mitochondrial DNA of people all over the world. And there's actually 48 different types of people on this earth that they've found so far. It used to be 43 mitochondrial DNAs that they've discovered, but now I think it's up pretty close to 50. I'm not really on the current on this information, but anyway, I wrote the book a long time ago. So these mitochondria, what they do, they're shaped like little round things. You got 3 or sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 in each of your human cells, and they take the nutrients and rearrange it atomically to create the right minerals for a cell division. So if you can feed them the right material, they can produce enough energy, ATP, for sugars and starches to feed the cell itself so that it can replicate without losing any of the telomeres or the DNA segments. Now, they say, I've never measured it, but they say the human DNA, if they unravel it, it's wound up very tightly It's got 300,000 turns, and it's in the cell, and it's the number of base pairs per turn of the DNA that, if you unravel this DNA chain, it measures pretty close to 6 feet long. I don't know how they measure that, but anyway, that's what they say, our scientists. And it's got 3 billion RNA DNA sequences that have to be replicated to make another cell. And this has processes to go on at 6 million times every second. Otherwise, you're going to start losing body cells, and that's called aging. You're going to age if you slow down on this process. So the mitochondria are amazing little creatures. They have the ability to transmute elements. I'm convinced of this. Our science isn't up on that, but David Hudson and I and others who have studied this for years are convinced that they have the ability for transmutation of elements. But we're not transmuting elements as we know them. They're combined atoms in the higher state above iron that are combined with all the protons in the nucleus. Well, on the atomic state, protons are kind of like little magnets of the same polarity, so they push away. The nucleus is a lot larger than a normal atom, and it's got double the number of protons, of course, of the higher atoms like platinum group metals, rhodium, ruthenium, etc., or gold. Anyway, they push away like little magnets, so they got a lot of space in the nucleus, and the mitochondria can pull protons out of there with magnetic pulses and produce any element necessary for complete cell division. And this technology isn't new. It's been around since pre-biblical times. Apparently, people in the Old Testament could live hundreds of years because they could gather these trace minerals up and put it in their pre-spread and fast a while and then eat it, and it would help with their cell division without losing any of the DNA segments. Mm-hmm. So they didn't age. They could renew themselves.
That's excellent.
And anyway, David Hudson actually got the patents on this material. You can type his name into YouTube or Google and get some information on him. There's another guy, Barry Carter. He's over there near Burnt River, Eastern Oregon. He does a 2-day seminar on this material. Takes people and shows them the science behind it. And the atoms themselves, these ORM atoms, overly rearranged monatomic elements, ORM is an acronym for them, ORMES. You can type that into YouTube and see people making it in their kitchen. Well, everything that we eat comes out of the soil by plants that extrude alkaline to the roots that dissolve the minerals that are in the soil. So a lot of the areas in the Middle East used to be under seawater at one time. There were vast deserts. And also around Phoenix, Arizona area, the vast desert area that had water over it at one time. Those mountains that stick up that show the strata and fossils in them, sea fossils, the buttes. Mm-hmm. And I climbed up on one around the Four Corners area, and my son Bill and I spent the night on top of one of those buttes at Four Corners. It was cold up there. It's a pretty high altitude. And I climbed down the side of it, and I found an agnath fossil, 6 feet long or 5 feet long. I took pictures of it in the rocks. There were several of them that were cut off when the rock fell off the cliff up there. Those are the first breathing sea creatures. They had external gills, and they had a mouth that could suck in food, but they didn't really have teeth or a jaw. They call them jawless ones, which means agnathia. Mm-hmm. I had to look all this up later. I didn't know what I was seeing when I took the picture. But anyway, these areas that have ocean on them at one time have a lot of trace minerals in the soil, but you can't grow anything on it because the soil is so alkaline, and plants need this extrude alkaline to their roots in order to gather up the trace minerals. So they can't really grow because the soil is too alkaline to begin with. So David Hudson was taking 90 tons of acid and dumping it on 5 acres of land. He gets a big old truckload from Freeport, Moran, 60% sulfuric acid, like battery acid, only stronger, 60% stronger, and dumps it on 5 acres. And after 5 years, you can grow cotton on it. It grows great, and then next year after that, tomatoes, but you have to irrigate it down there. But he's got many thousands of acres that he farms there. He's a fourth-generation farmer.
Mm-hmm.
He originally came from France with his ancestors, but, he's tied in with this alchemical subject. Well, alchemy is, the word itself comes from alchemet, which is the mountains of red soil that came from the mountains washed down the Amazon River that replenishes the soil every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the orms in it. It might be volcanic in origin. The Tremet was, part of the mountains up above the Nile River. So anyway, David Hudson read his wife was into the alchemy end of it. She was reading a lot of books, and it took a while for her to convince him to start reading some of these books. He read about form atoms into the actual metal. And he was making metal plates out of them and selling them for rhodium prices to General Electric. General Electric puts them in a box 16 inches square, and they were testing these fuel cells at the time, and they were getting 100 kilowatts of electricity out of a box 16 inches square with these oxygen and hydrogen in there. There's absolutely no waste or any kind of discharge of carbon or anything from this process. It's, in fact, the result is pure water. You could drink it. They actually have buses that run on these hydrogen fuel cells in Los Angeles at the present time. But at the time, back in the 1970s, General Electric was just testing these things. They needed a source of rhodium for the plates because it's kind of a complicated atom that phosphoresces on the surface. It gets very hot and it doesn't melt. Very tough. In fact, it's the toughest element that we know of in the periodic table. Doing tests over a period of 20 years or so for gold mines, and I was doing assays and having them done in California and Nevada, and leach assays and fire assays, small spectrographs, and I didn't understand the results for a long time. And I was paying $25 for a spectrographic analysis, sometimes as cheap as $15 or $20 for a leach assay, but I'd send the ores out, and then I'd get the results back, and it didn't make any sense to me. There was nothing, in the spectrographs, there was no precious metals at all,
Mm-hmm.
And what was happening, the American-made spectrographs only have 3/8 inch diameter electrodes, slit, and every time something flashes, it leaves a mark on this. Learned later. So anyway, I finally got a test done by Bremner Technologies in Las Vegas, and they're no longer in business right now, but they were using a different device. They had a chamber they put sample in, they fill it with argon gas, and then they melt it down with electron beams. They're kind of like picture tube guns on the old TV sets, which we don't have anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it melts it into a lump of glass, and this imparts electrons into these complex atoms and separates them into the metallic state from this orderly rearranged state. And then you get up to 3 to 6 times more recovery out of these metals. So instead of 3 times the gold or 1 time the gold, you get 6 times more gold or whatever, or platinum, or rhodium or iridium or whatever you're trying to do with a particular ore. So once I had this test laying around the house for a while, and finally I read it more thoroughly.
If it's not the server, it's Henry. What's going on? Hang on for a second, everybody. He gracefully dropped out. So quiet, I almost didn't notice. My goodness. It's interesting. Okay.
I guess we got cut off the air there. Huh?
I guess. I wondered what happened to you. So you're back, thank goodness. How's your battery? You pretty charged?
Oh, fine. I don't know why it dropped down.
I don't know, but you're back, so that's good.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I was talking about spectrographs and rhodium. How long have I been off the air?
You only went off for like maybe a few seconds. It wasn't very long. So.
Okay, well, anyway, I realized that there was more to this atomic structure than what we were being taught in school. And by imparting electrons to the sample, you could separate the worm atoms into the metallic state. And they were doing it with electron guns and in this chamber. So I tallied up the number of parts per million and multiplied it by this factor to determine how many ounces.
Are you there? Yep. Henry? Where'd you go? Can you hear me? It's going to be one of those nights, isn't it? Hang on, everybody. Henry, I can't hear you. Let me try. Yeah, I'm dropping him. Something's up here. Okay, everybody, hang on. Something's wrong with this connection. Not real good. Now that the server's maintaining, got something else going on. Oh, gosh. I'll tell you. Sing yourselves a song. Right? You can hum some station.
Welcome to the voicemail.
No, come on. Let's try it again. All right, so it must be a pretty nasty store.
Selling these plates to General Electric, and GE called them up and they said, "Hey, David, we test these plates. We're paying you rhodium prices for them, and they don't test rhodium." He was getting $5,000 an ounce for rhodium at the time, and the plates were 8 inches wide and 16 inches long, so they probably had about 20 ounces in there. That's a lot of rhodium. So anyway, he says it's rhodium, but it's a different state of matter than we're familiar with. So General Electric hired Hal Putoff, the Institute of Advanced Scientific Studies in Houston, Texas, and brought him up there, and he consulted with David Hudson for quite a long time, and they got 22 patents on what David calls ORMs, O-R-M-E-S. So he holds the patents on them. I have a copy here, and I also have one copy of one of his lectures, which are really fascinating. But I discovered it on my own before I came across David's patents. I bought a book in Montana by accident. I was on vacation. I walked into Bozeman, Montana bookstore. First book I opened had a picture of Sydney Bay, where I live in the summertime, Fossil Point. So naturally...
Oh, where are you going? I think I'm losing him again, you guys. Good grief, man. Oh, thank you, everybody in chat. I know it's frustrating. Believe me, it is. And we're just kind of going through it. I suspect we'll still be recording everything okay. So let me try and get him back. Something's messed up as the wheel turns and the planet burns, right, guys? You tell I'm sarcastic tonight.
Welcome to the voicemail of.
Come on. All right. Let's try it again, Henry. Good grief. Well, at least there'll be an archive, right, everybody? I did see your questions in there, old Fritz. I'll try to ask those questions, too, by the way.
Welcome to the voicemail of 9.
That's ridiculous. Hang on, everybody. It's really interesting because now the server's not going in and out, now that I'm trying to contact you. I find interesting. The server stabilizes and my guest disintegrates. Okay. Hello?
Yeah, well, anyway, to make a long story short, I better get this out there before we get off again, get cut off.
Right.
You know, I got the recipes from Pfizer Pharmaceutical, and I put 6 recipes in the book. We're kind of in a bind here. I found this out on my own. I'm over 70, so it's very critical that we are able to do something about this for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So you just take and boil, like limestone is grown in the sea. It's by plants or anything grown in the ocean or seawater. The recipes cover a wide range, even dry material. So they're developed by Pfizer. I didn't make them up. They were going to have a pill for immortality back in the late 1970s, but they couldn't put it on the market because they want you to die off without collecting your Social Security so they can keep the money you paid in during your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep the lifespan short as possible.
Right.
They don't like old people around too much, but
That's
they
true.
are a big resource up here because people make money taking care of them and feeding them and pushing them around in wheelchairs.
Huh.
You know? So anyway, it's pretty hideous situation we're in, but
Well, you're pretty youthful there, Henry. You don't sound old at all. I mean, you don't sound like you're
Well, I'm finally, wising up. I think I'm smart enough to figure a few things out anyway.
Oh yeah, no, you're very wise.
So we need to make our own mineral supplements. I don't see any other way out of it. We can't afford to buy them. I mean, they're like $60 for joint pills or whatever. Every so often you have to check out for 30-day or 90-day supply. And so where do we go from here as a nation? What are they planning for us here?
Yeah, self-destruct. That's what it looks like.
So anyway, the title of the book is Philosopher's Stone, and you can get it by dialing 1-877-BUY-BOOK. It's a toll-free number, but it's 877, not 800. It's 1-877-BUY-BOOK.
Great.
It's from Affinity Publishing. And it's been out on the market for quite some time. Quite a few medical doctors have read it. It's been traded around the university libraries in Montana and other places in California. And, I got a little carried away when I was writing it, but recipes are in there and parts of the effects of what it happens to you when you take it. Now, you got to be careful when you take this stuff. You can do all of the things that science can't explain, like know what's going to happen in the future. You can tell when people are lying around you. You might be able to read minds at home, and they're cured, Mm-hmm. There's a clinic that does this in San Diego. I don't know the name of it, but if I put it on the air, they might close them down anyway. So
mm-hmm.
Anyway, once you're aware of it, you can also order the actual white powder of the ormus from people on the internet that are making it.
No, that's the monoatomic.
Time.
And Henry, is that monoatomic gold or is that something different?
Yes, it is a monatomic gold. It's a higher stone. It's a white powder of orbitally rearranged atoms, and you can take it out of soil that has a lot of it in there, or you can actually burn gold nuggets into this material. There was one time that a person hung a gold Krugerrand in a position under a pyramid. He had a 15-foot pyramid in his backyard, and he hung a Krugerrand in there, just made out of wood, I guess. And I don't know what he had for tarp on the outside of it. And he put a glass of distilled water underneath this coin. And after 3 days, it had white powder on the surface of the coin. And he dipped it into the cup of water and drank it, and he got a really good dose of worms. He thought he'd overdosed on the stuff. But you get extreme mental clarity, and it has I believe we use it for brain synapse because it's shaped like galaxies. You see, when you can't bond into a solid, these orbitally combined atoms, anything else, so we're made up of these atoms, but when you got them Cooper paired, they're passing one another at twice light speed, and it creates a time field around the outside of these atoms. Mm-hmm. So if we get enough of this in our bodies, we can walk on water. We could do all of the things that are described that Jesus did and more probably, and also live longer and healthier, because the mitochondria within our bodies can make the proper elements and use the energy for cell division.
Right. And, Henry, we had a question in the chat from Old Fritz that's asked, does Henry know if colloidal silver is an anti-aging? I'm taking colloidal silver myself, and it's not exactly it's very necessary for health. And since I'm quite getting older and I'm getting an operation, I had an operation on my left knee, I've been making my own colloidal silver, and it's quite easy to make. I've got a device of 2 alligator clips and 3 9-volt batteries that are connected together, and you plug in this little box with the batteries inside of it, and you got 2 pieces of pure silver wire, and you just stick it down in a glass of water. In 15 minutes, it turns kind of milky, and you unplug your device, and you drink the water or whatever. You don't have to drink it all, and some people you probably don't want to drink a whole glass of it. You might just try a quarter of a glass or just a few tablespoons at a time, but I've been drinking a glass a day because I'm preparing myself for a hip operation. Mm-hmm, exactly. And Henry, we're going to head for a break, everybody. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back here at Ravenstar Switching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven.